All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started. We are focused all day today on seller appointments. Earlier this week, our focus has been on lead generation, prospecting, and marketing. We're going to take those efforts and get to the place where now we're focused on getting to sellers and presenting a listing presentation to get listing agreements. As always, we focus on two aspects of a successful real estate agent's business. One is to grow their business, and then the other half is to run their business. And if you were paying attention this morning during the Reedy and Red episode with Lisa Spencer, growing your business is working on your business, right? Or client acquisition. This definitely would be the aspect of always replenishing the well. And then running your business is the aspect of doing the activities in your business. So we lead generate for buyers and sellers, and our focus today is all about making seller listing presentations and getting those listings. So what is it that sellers want? We talked about this a little bit during our time in Spark, and yet here we can see that sellers found their agent in a multitude of ways. The most important way was 39% were referred by or is a friend, neighbor, or relative. So majority of the time, the reason why someone has chosen an agent is because they either know the person or they have been referred to the person. So please keep that in mind, absolutely. Second is that they've used the agent previously, and so they want to continue to use that agent. And those two things are the lion's share. So it's very important that you're in relationships with individuals, because remember, even if they are not necessarily looking to buy or sell at this moment, they might know someone who's looking to buy or sell. And that referral is the best thing that you could possibly have happen for you in your business. In addition to that, then we go significantly less to 5% had a personal contact by agent. So this would be maybe a cold call, a door knock, something that brought you into their life either just before or just after they're thinking about buying or selling. And then a 4% used an internet website such as a Zillow, Trulia, Redfin to find an agent that's there. And then 3% visited an open house and met the agent. So again, as you can see, the most important thing that you can do for your business when wanting to attract listings is actually to just be in contact with enough people that they have people in their world that are thinking about buying or selling. So what is it that sellers actually want? So we found out where they found their agent, and yet what is it that agents actually want? So 21% of the sellers said that they wanted the home to be marketed by the listing agent. Then that's followed by 20% wanted help to sell the home in a specific time frame. And then 19% said help price homes competitively. So if you look at these three answers, 60% of the reason why someone is looking to work with an agent is for those three reasons. And so what I want you to be thinking of is, as you're going into a listing presentation or as you're having conversations with potential sellers, does your language reflect these three categories? Do your listing materials reflect these three categories? Then my job is to market your home first and foremost, and I'm going to show you how we do that through an aggressive marketing campaign. In addition to that, I'm going to work with you to make sure that we're presenting the home in a timely manner so that we can get your home under contract and sold in a time frame that works for you. And then lastly, I'm going to work with you using a comparative market analysis, looking at what's going on in the environment to make sure that we price your home correctly so that we can market it and get it sold for the most amount of money in a time frame that works for you, right? I mean, that entire value proposition that I just created off the cuff was using those top three things that a seller is looking for. So please incorporate that into your business. I do not know why I cannot speak today. So talking about the process to the listing. We've already discussed the pre-listing questionnaire a couple weeks ago when we were focused in Spark. We will revisit that, of course. It's to actually schedule the listing appointment. Once we've done the pre-listing, we're going to send the pre-listing packet that's going to have that information for them that they have access to. We are then going to create the listing presentation that's specific for them. Excuse me. And then we're going to actually go on the listing appointment. So we're going to do the home walkthrough, and then we're going to actually have the listing appointment with the potential seller. So understanding what this looks like before the appointment. So we're going to do the pre-listing goals. The pre-listing goals is to state our value. So we want to tell the seller what we do, right? Or what we bring of value, your unique value proposition. And go back to, I'm a marketer. As a listing specialist, my job is to market your home to the masses so that we can cast the largest net and pull in the potential buyers. Second from that is I'm going to use that marketing to help you sell in a time frame that works for you. And we're going to identify the type of marketing activities and the time frame that you're looking for, which will help us determine what price we're going to list your home at using a comparative market analysis. Right? 2, pre-selling. So we're going to build confidence and answer questions. So we're going to do the pre-selling questionnaire. Why are you moving? When would you like to be there? Do you have to sell this home in order to move into that home? Right? Have you thought about selling it yourself? Have you interviewed any other agents? I'm sure through this process, you've thought about putting your home on the market at a certain price. Did you have a price in mind? Is there a certain price that you don't want to go below? Absolutely. Could you describe your home for me? Have you made any updates or any improvements to the home that you feel are going to affect the value when I'm doing a comparative market analysis? If what I say makes sense when I see you this Thursday, is there anything that would stop you from listing your home with me when I see you? And then lastly, do you have any questions for me before I see you on Thursday? Fantastic. And I'm going to be sending over a packet of information, a pre-listing packet that'll have some information about myself, my company, as well as the home selling process, as well as some of the legal documents. That way you can get familiar with them. Will you have an opportunity to review that packet prior to when I see you Thursday at 6 o'clock? Fantastic. And then number 3 is that we're going to save time by answering the objections up front. And that is why the pre-listing packet is so important. We're able to go ahead and identify what the possible things are that would cause someone to be hesitant about listing with us. And we're going to go ahead and answer those before we even get there. So the pre-listing presentation, you can actually find the pre-listing presentation in your Elementals toolbox. That link was sent to you earlier this week. I will go through and resend that link, or if someone here has that link already saved, if you would put it in the chat box and make sure that it's to all panelists and attendees. That is for the Elementals toolkit, not the Spark toolkit. So let's have a conversation about the pre-listing packet. How does the pre-listing packet or presentation help you have a smooth listing appointment? Go ahead and put your answers in the chat box. Again, make sure that it's to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your answers. How does the pre-listing packet or presentation help you have a smooth listing appointment? So Kelly said that it helps you know specifically what to do and say to not miss anything. It's a structure, okay? Kelly Reynolds, it answers some of the basic questions that seller might have and gets them out of the way. Yep, absolutely. What else? Eve said it cuts down on the amount of time discussing details at the appointments. It keeps the appointment on target to sign the paperwork. Absolutely. So in your Google Drive, Linda said that it makes sure that you don't forget anything. That is correct. So in the Google Drive, you'll see that there's the standard operating procedure for the Coastal Elite Group's pre-listing packet. And so you're able to use that as a reference. That is the format that I've used for pre-listing packets that you can absolutely have. So understand that what are some of the things that people are potentially, or sellers are going to potentially have questions around? Well, it's probably going to be about price. It's probably going to be about commission. It's probably going to be about what are you going to do to market my home? How much am I going to net? Why should I choose you? Right? Some of these questions that are there, what documents am I going to need to sign? What's the time frame look like in order to do the coordination of everything? So we actually utilize a lot of the pre-listing packet to go ahead and answer those questions, right? So thinking about the documents that we have, what's going to help answer their question about the price of the home? Go ahead and put that in the chat box. What's a tool that we use to help answer the price of the home? Yeah, a CMA. Yep, a comparative market analysis. Now for a pre-listing packet, yeah, not a comma. For a pre-listing packet, what we are going to be looking for is not to give them a full comparative market analysis. So I'm not going to tell them the price that I think that they should list their home at. I'm just going to do a market analysis. And so the difference between the two is that a comparative market analysis is pulling in comps or the subject property in 2, 3, 6 other properties to say, these are just like yours and this is what the price is. Instead, I give a generic market analysis that's basically, this is the entire neighborhood. This is the lowest, this is the highest. These are all of the homes that have sold in the last 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be. And that way it's a much larger range that's not really giving them any information that they couldn't already collect from Zillow. Because remember that price and condition, or price and marketing, are really the two things that I have control over to help move the home. That's it. So part of pricing the home correctly is probably about 80 to 90% of my value as an agent. So I really don't want to give them my price for free. That's why I just give them a generic market analysis. Now, what's going to give them an answer around what they're going to net? What's a tool that we use to help answer what someone will net on a property? Yeah, a seller's net sheet. Now, for some of you, you're like, these are dumb questions. And yet this is not that this is the part. I'm not saying that you're dumb. I'm saying that it's a lot of common sense that is, I can give them a lot of information before I even see them, right? To Eve's point, there are no dumb questions, just dumb people. So understanding that with that, we understand that there is a market analysis. There is a net sheet. We understand that. So what can I do to answer questions about the home selling process? Well, maybe I can give them a guide to selling your home, which is directly from Keller Williams. You will just have to tweak it slightly so that you make it your own. Or you can use a seller's guide. We use a seller's guide, and that kind of tells them a little bit about us, why choose the team, who is on our team. And so for those of you that are like, well, I'm a single agent, I don't have a team. They don't have to be people on your payroll, right? The title company that you choose to work with, your lending partner that you choose to work with, who your home photographer is, who your videographer is, who your home inspector is. You know, these are the things, who the signpost guy is going to be. Those people that help you actually list a home and market a home that is your team. So you can have your team as a part of that. The home selling process. So letting them know what happens from the time that we signed paperwork to getting the pictures done, to staging the home, putting it on the market, doing an open house, marketing to the neighborhood, marketing to the buyer community, marketing to the broker community, getting it under contract, what happens at that time of negotiation, what's the plan from contract to close, how often will you communicate? All of that can be outlined in your seller's guide. And then lastly, we kind of talk a little bit about ourselves, and we talk a little bit about Keller Williams. So if you don't have a lot of data on yourself or your team, then use Keller Williams. Use Keller Williams International to let them know that they're partnering with the #1 brokerage in the world, as well as letting them know that by listing with you here in the Tampa Bay area, they're listing with the #1 brokerage firm in the Tampa Bay area with the Chadwick Group. And so you can share that information. You can get that data from your agent support page, something like Cappers in Training. It's also in the intranet. And you can actually find a lot of these graphics and things that you can incorporate into your seller's guide. Another thing people are going to want to know is, what is it like to work with you? So you can go ahead and include testimonials in your pre-listing packet. If you have not had any sales, then use character references from people that have worked with you in the past. You know, people who are coworkers. They can absolutely say, I loved working with Linda. She is always punctual. She always is meticulous in the way that she's detail oriented. I always felt comfortable and confident that with working with her, that things were going to get done. It didn't say anything about selling a house, and yet it's talking about who you are and what your work ethic looks like. And that's what's so important about testimonials. So please don't just disregard them, even if you haven't actually had a real estate transaction. Now, if you have had real estate transactions, then make sure that you have testimonials. I don't care if you sold a house to someone 2 years ago and you never got a testimonial. Reach out to them, say hello, let them know that you're beefing up some marketing material. You realize that you never had an opportunity to ask them for a testimonial, and if they would give one, you would be honored so that you can incorporate that into your marketing material. That's as simple as it is. Can you please clarify who the Chadwick group is? Yes, Kelly. So each Keller Williams is an independent franchise. So each office is independently owned and operated. Now, with that said, we have a structure of where there is an operating principal. And so previously, an operating principal was someone who had to have at least 20% equity in a market center and have at least 51% voting rights. Now, they've adjusted those requirements ever so slightly. And so with that, even though each market center is individually owned and operated, Kevin Chadwick, who is the Chadwick group, Kevin Chadwick is the operating principal, meaning that he owns a minimum of 20% of 6 offices here in the Tampa Bay area. Now, the other people who are the shareholders, the other owners of the market centers, they're different for each market center. So when you actually say that you are with KW St. Pete, or you're with KW Seminole, or you're with KW Gulf Beaches, or you're with KW Brandon, KW Tampa Central, KW South Shore, or Apollo Beach, any of those market centers in South Tampa, KW South Tampa, sorry, any of those market centers actually belong to the Chadwick group, right? So the principal owner of all of those market centers is the same. So when we pull that information together, we've actually sold more than $3 billion of inventory last year, which is more than any other brokerage firm in the Tampa Bay area. So again, you could either use just your brokerage, or you could use the actual brokerage firm. And that's the great thing about statistics and data. You can use any kind of statistics that make you look good, and you can just choose to omit some of the data that makes you look bad. That's the fun thing about economics. So understanding that from this perspective, you can really market yourself to whomever and wherever you want. This is a really great thing if you find yourself taking listings in places all over the place, right? So Gina McWilliams, one of our rockstar agents in the coaching program, she just took a listing that will go live in June in Valrico. So the challenge sometimes when going on a listing appointment in a place that's not where, say, KW St. Pete or KW Seminole, is to let them know that the Keller Williams Chadwick group is located in all of these places, shows that you're just a little bit closer to home than maybe they thought that you were, right? And so that can be a huge help for you. And I know that I'm kind of derailing a little bit, but the point here is that the pre-listing packet for me is going to answer as many questions for them about me, about Keller Williams, about our process, so that when I go on the listing consultation, it can be all about them. And I don't really have to sell myself because I've already done that in the pre-listing packet. So then once we get to that point, we actually do the listing presentation. And again, from the listing presentation, you can use a listing presentation here in Command. There are tools for you, templates that are already out. If you want to have a listing actual presentation, again, you have the tools here. I would love for you to do what works best for you. Now, with that being said, I always teach from the perspective of don't just do because Michael told you to, or Michael did it, and so that's the way that you want to do it, or that's the way that Eve's done it, or that's the way that Leah Herzworm's done it. I don't care who it is. this is your business. So if you're making a decision, then I want you to justify why you make a decision. So if you choose to do a listing presentation actually using a tablet or a binder or paper, whatever it might be, then just tell me why. And if you choose to do one that is without that, you also have to tell me why that's why you chose to do it. You don't have to do that right now. But the point here is that I've never had an actual listing presentation. I've never had a PowerPoint. I've never really done that. My listing presentation is, I don't even know where my book is. Like I bring a little black notebook that I take notes in, and I have a conversation with them. Now, what I will do is the pre-listing packet that's sent to them ahead of time, I will just print that out again and then take that with me. So it's just another copy of the pre-listing packet that they've already had, because it already had the listing agreement, it already had the seller's property disclosures, it already had any of the other addenda that we needed so that they had an opportunity to review it. It has the home seller's guide. It has a lot of that information that can be really helpful to the seller. But I really want them to know, and I'll have it closed. I'll bring the folder, but I'll put it down on the table, and I'm not really referencing it until we get to the place of talking about the paperwork. I really just want to take out a notepad and have a conversation with them about their goals, right? So remind me again, why is it that you're selling your home, right? And we'll kind of rehash through the pre-listing packet. I'll ask some questions about the reason for them selling. Do they absolutely need to sell? Do they want to price it at a price where it'll sell, or do they want to price it at a price where it'll sit month over month over month over month? And then would they like me to handle the sale of the home for them? If the answer is yes, yes, and yes, listing presentation is over. I now can talk logistics. I've got my photographer who can come in next week. Do you think that a week's time is going to be enough for you to get the home show ready, or would you like a little bit more time? So we have a conversation and a consultation through this process. Now, if they say, yes, I absolutely have to sell it. Yes, I want to put it at a price where it'll sell. No, I don't necessarily want to list with you right now because I don't really know you, or I'd like to know more about you. Then I go, fantastic. What specifically would you like to know? And then I'm going to isolate the objection, overcome the objection, and get the listing done. So what are some ahas before we get into the thick of this? What are some ahas about the pre-listing packet and then the listing presentation or consultation? Kelly, I'll answer that question in a minute, but I don't want to derail. So let's just have a conversation about the pre-listing packet and the listing presentation or listing process that you do. And actually, what I'd love to do is I just want to have a little bit of a conversation with my rock star co-teacher and also master faculty here at Keller Williams, Miss Eve Sawicki. So Miss Eve, I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak. If you will unmute yourself when you're ready. And I'd love to just have just a general discussion because I know that you and I do things slightly differently, and yet, you know, both of us have been successful. So I know that we've talked about this before, actually, the last time, that you've not utilized the pre-listing packet before, but it was something that you wanted to incorporate. So we won't spend too much time on that right now. Let's talk about the listing presentation. So how does your listing format look, Eve?
Well, my listing presentation is a little more formal than yours, it sounds like. What I like to do is to present to the seller the information that a buyer will be looking at when they make an offer.
Okay.
With the idea being that I want the seller to come to the conclusion themselves about what's required to make sure that their property actually sells. So what I do is I put together something that I do review with them. I don't necessarily go through it page by page. I often just hand it to them and say, you know, this is something that is bedtime reading for you, but we're going to have a conversation now about how we're going to get your home sold. And I'll use that information to put a case together that I can verbalize to them about, for example, what the price point has been for a house like theirs in the neighborhood. I talk about statistics you know, of what's been recently selling in their particular area or in Pinellas County or in Tampa Bay, depending on what kind of property they have. So I actually use the handout, I guess you'd say, to put a conversation together that I have with them face to face.
Okay. And I think you're absolutely right in the sense that your listing presentation is a little bit formal. And I think to my point, and the whole reason for this is that both of us are right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
my pre-listing packet is a little bit more formal so that I give them the opportunity to feel like they've connected with me on a personal level in the moment, because we already did a lot of the like formality in, you know, making sure that the white folder with the black presentation folder is done in such a way so that they can see how professional we are. But to your point, I also think that I'm going to have to shift some of the things that I do. I do think I'm going to have to use my iPad a little bit more now that we're moving more into video. I think that I have to show them kind of the type of video content that we put out.
And you're absolutely right, and I agree. And that means I'm going to have to learn how to actually use my iPad instead of just displaying it.
Yeah.
But the other thing I would caution, and this actually happened to me, was how much you give or leave with the seller. You know, a pre-listing packet, the nice thing about a pre-listing packet is it's all pretty generic.
Yep. There's no check secrets.
If it falls into competitors' hands, you know, it's not a big deal. But I have had the situation where I put together, you know, a stunning listing presentation that was clearly the way to get the house sold, and left it with the seller, and had the seller call me the next day and say, "Oh my God, Eve, your presentation was fabulous. We're doing it your way, but we've decided to use a different agent. But don't worry, we're giving him your handout, and we've told him that he has to do it exactly the way you presented."
For a fraction of the cost.
Well, and you know, I mean, not to gloat, but that house sat on the market for 1.5 years. But anyway, it's so I would just caution you. You know, you want to make sure that you keep your value, and that the seller has to work with you in order to get that value.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that Kelly said, "I know that being prepared for the first listing presentation will take a lot of gathering of resources and prep." And I don't think that that's actually true, because I do think that there are questions to ask, right? We have the pre-listing questionnaire. Those questions can be asked at the listing presentation, quite frankly. And really making sure that you're asking great questions about what they specifically want. And then to Eve's point, how you can execute and do exactly what it is that they say that they want done.
Yes. And it's important, I think, to have the seller feel that you're a team,
Mm-hmm.
that you're not coming in, you know, as an agent and dictating what they should do, and they should do it one way, and this is the way. I really try to, as you said, Michael, to your point, have a conversation and develop an approach as a team, so that when the paperwork is signed, the seller feels fully invested in the way that we're going to proceed forward.
I think the other thing that's going to be the most helpful when preparing for a listing presentation is to actually do mock listing presentations. So doing a mock, you've got one of two options, right? You can do it my way, which is not the best way, which was to just go on a lot of listing presentations and totally fake and fail through them. Or it is to practice with a script partner. I mean, you know, you already have a script partner, or you find someone that you can remotely tolerate that are already here, that's a part of the office, and just dedicate one day a week where 1 week you're the one who's the listing agent, so you prepare for an hour, and then the next week the other agent is the agent for the week. And imagine in a year's time what it would look like if each one of you had an opportunity to do 25 practice listing presentations. I think that that's that's huge, whether you're in the beginning aspect or not. You know, it's one of those things that we have to just practice and be prepared for questions. And I don't know about you, Eve, but we're coming up with a lot of COVID questions and overcoming obstacles where I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch. I did a video yesterday on my personal page that was just talking about refinancing and talking about forbearance and talking about should you buy, should you sell? Because we get all the questions and yet nobody really has a concrete answer right now. Are you experiencing that, Eve?
Yes, and that's an excellent point. I can't emphasize enough taking the opportunity to practice on a regular basis. Because the great thing about real estate is no 2 days are the same, and no 2 listing appointments are the same. And as the market changes and the environment changes, like this COVID that we're experiencing now, what your seller's concerns are will change, and the questions that you get will be different. So I absolutely agree. I've gotten some really off the wall questions, a lot of what's going to happen to the market questions, a lot of, well, you know, if all these people are dying and getting sick, you know, who's going to be buying houses, that sort of thing. So I agree, Michael. You need to practice as much as possible, and you need to really think about the kinds of questions that your seller is going to ask before you go into the presentation.
And the only way to do that is to practice with someone else's mindset.
Yes.
So script practicing with Eve, Eve could throw me a question that I've never had to handle before. And I could do the same thing to her because she's already run through all the questions that she would probably ask. And so we kind of are limited. You know, that's the aspect. I've talked about this as well throughout this week and through 2020. Part of one of my goals, right, my goals to achieve this year was to begin writing my book, writing a book, right? And so I started the intro. And what's really funny is once you've formulated kind of the framework of how you would approach a chapter or a paragraph, it's really hard for you to completely like blank slate and go back. Yes. And it's the same thing with doing this aspect of the questions. Once you've come up with the questions, you're usually locked in on the questions that you think someone would ask. We need someone else's opinion to shake it up for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So you might be able to help me answer some of these questions. Linda said, do your clients ever ask if they can call one of your previous clients? And if they do you give them a previous client's phone number to call?
I absolutely have had that question, and yes, what I do is I have 3 clients that I have spoken with. I have asked them if I can use them as people who were satisfied with my services and would be happy to talk to another potential client about their experience. That's very important that you get that approval ahead of time. And then if someone says to me, can I call a client? Then I'll give them the 3 names and I'll call the 3 people as soon as I get out of the appointment to tell them that they might be getting a phone call. But yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah. And Kelly asked, what's the average price range for a photographer? That could be anywhere from $150 all the way up to over $1,000, depending on the size of the home, square footage, if you're going to do twilight photos, drone photos, Matterport, virtual staging. I mean, there's a whole slew of them, but I would say that, and Eve, you tell me, because you're in production and I'm not, would you say that the average for, you know, a 2,000 square foot home that you were just taking day photos, nothing special, is probably somewhere between like 150 and 250?
I would agree with that. I will say as an aside that I pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for my photos because my husband is my photographer. But nonetheless, I would agree that to get reasonable photos, 150 to 250, and let me point out here with photography, you get what you pay for.
100%.
Yeah, and you know, clear, attractive pictures where the windows aren't blown and the shadows have been erased off the ceiling from the ceiling fans. Those kinds of touches are very important because if buyers see your pictures on the internet and they're ugly pictures or they're poorly done or you've taken them with your cell phone, they're just going to walk or they're going to just go right past your property. So these photographers that tell you that they'll do, 50 pictures and a video tour for $75, you're going to get what you pay for it, and it's not going to help you sell your house.
Right. And so, I was having this discussion with Roy yesterday, and it's from that perspective that your pictures are of previous property is 100% a direct correlation to your level of marketing and your brand.
Yes.
If you use crappy pictures, it's very difficult for you to go to a $1 million property and ask for $30,000 or $60,000 commission when you're only paying $100 for a photo shoot.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Linda asked, same question for me. Do I also give out clients? So on our seller's guide, and I think I've shown this before, on the seller's guide, the second to last page is usually 3 testimonials. And so I actually use like a round frame, and that's the picture of the clients. Then it's their quote and then their name, right? So I automatically use that. If someone was to ask for a client to call them, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that, first of all, if you're being featured in my seller's guide or if you're a client of mine and we've ended well, it hasn't been a horrible experience. I have probably less than a handful of clients that are blacklisted, meaning I have no intention of working with them ever again.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of them, we'd like to believe that they've had a really great experience with us, and I should feel comfortable enough to be able to give them to whomever. What about you, Steve?
Absolutely. I have a handful of clients, never again. But the vast majority of my clients, I think, are pretty happy with my services. I will say there are people I prefer to work with over other people, but on the whole, my transactions, as I said, I really try to have the seller and I be on the same team, so that we, everybody wins, kind of thing, and that works well for me.
We want to, I told you that our business, last year, 79% of our business came from our sphere, and what that tells me is I want to do business with people I like, that I want to spend time with, that I want to pick up the phone. Like if I see someone call my phone and I dread the phone call, I'm not working with the right person. If I'm thinking about spending weeks in the car working with a potential buyer and I hate them, but I like money, I'm working with the wrong client. And so I've done what I believe is a fairly decent job. Now, granted, I don't sell thousands of homes a year, but doing a decent job of being intentional about the people that I work with. And if you've been through the old Ignite, you heard this as kind of my mantra, my business plan, that there are 1.3 million people in the Tampa Bay area. That number has probably doubled since I've been saying this for a decade. There are 1.3 million people in the Tampa Bay area, and I only need blank families to choose to work with me, right? So we're talking about to do more than 10 million or to do about 10 million in volume is about 40 transactions. So there are 1.3 million people in the Tampa Bay area. I only need 40 of them to work with me. And those 40 people, I should be able to find 40 people that I want to work with as well to be able to hit my wildest dreams. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that, Michael. I mean, you really have to not be overwhelmed by, oh my God, am I going to ever find anybody who loves me and wants to work with me? And, oh, I don't know enough. People are going to see that I'm inexperienced. All those monkeys on your back. You just really have to step back and say, there are 40 families in this area that I can find this year that will be willing to work with a new agent or willing to work with an agent who is at this price point or whatever your profile is.
Yeah. And the other part of that too is You can also say that when it's time to fire someone, right? So when there's that person that you really don't want to be working with, again, you hate the client, but you love money. They're a time-sucking vampire probably anyway, that in the same amount of time and effort that you would have put into them, if you would have just gone out and gone back to go fish, you probably could have found 2 or 3 other people that you would have liked to have worked with in the same amount of time that you've spent with that person. And I know that that's very difficult in the beginning when we kind of have a scarcity mindset and we so desperately want business to stick. However, really be in that mindset that is, you don't have to work with everybody. If someone is changing your energy, your mindset, they're bringing you down, it's not worth the money. It's not.
And I agree, but I have a question for you, Micheal, along these lines, which is, if you do start working with someone and they turn into a vampire suck, and you're like, okay, I'm not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Question, do you refer them to someone or do you just dump them?
So I will normally, I'm trying to think, like, again, it's been less than a handful, and I'm usually pretty good that if they become that person later on, I have proxy in my business, right? And so, you know, basically once they get to a certain point, then they kind of are handed off to other people where I can check in. And, you know, sometimes I'm thinking of one person in particular, and I really hate that these things are going to go on YouTube, so I'm not going to say her name. But I would have to walk her off the ledge pretty much every day. Every day she would call, she was freaking out. We sold her home. We were buying another home. And I mean, it was probably like $22,000 worth of commission was caught up in whether or not on any particular day, I was either going to have that money or I wasn't, because she was ready to walk away from everything pretty much every day. And it got to a point where I had to meet her at her level. So she was cussing at me, I was cussing back at her. And I had to literally say, person, you hired me for a reason. You did the things that you wanted. I'm telling you that you need to calm the not in culture down, because you hired me to do something and I've delivered on everything that you wanted. What you're asking for is completely unreasonable, and I need you to let me do my job. And she backed off. So sometimes understanding it's not about being unprofessional, but sometimes those people do need to be checked, right? We talk about this from a negotiation standpoint. You know, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, that adage. It's from that perspective that is, if you allow someone to start to run your calendar or to do certain things and you never bring it up because you're like, no, I don't want to be rude, I don't want to offend them, I feel like you're compromising your integrity or your business. And I think that that's different, which is that the customer isn't always right. The customer just has to feel heard. So
agree with that.
To your point, Eve, I don't think that I've ever handed someone off. I think there was someone who was completely unreasonable and we just took their home off the market and they never sold. And like even to this day, they still haven't sold. That's really the only thing that I've had. I don't have too many people that are unreasonable. And I think that part of that is it really comes down to your confidence. And I know, Eve, you don't have a problem with this, but there might be some people on here that are like, you know, I would never be able to tell someone the F word. I promise, stay in this business long enough and you will. It's because of the fact that I know my value, I know my worth. And so I've had to have a conversation with someone that is, you are not allowed to talk to me that way. And so some of those time-sucking vampires, you know, I had someone, and I love her. She actually is one of my favorite clients. You know, she told me, well, my stepmother told me that we have to look at least 30 houses before we make a decision. And I said, well, when was the last time that your stepmother bought a home? Oh, like 16 years ago. Okay, so your stepmom didn't have Zillow. She didn't have Trulia. She wasn't laying in bed at 11 o'clock at night scrolling through hundreds of homes and sending me emails every morning. You've already looked at hundreds of homes. we've now found the 5 or 6 that were at the very top of your list. So you have looked, not even 30, you've looked at hundreds of homes, and we finally came to the place that is, these are the top for you. And so I don't really allow them to be super time sucky, or it's just from that perspective of, listen, you can call me anytime that you want to. It doesn't mean that I'm going to answer always. And I just want to set clear expectation. It's not that I'm ignoring you. It's not that I'm not answering you. It's just understand that I have a lot of people in my business, and I have a lot of things that are in my wheelhouse. So if something is immediate, here are the people that you can speak to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that some people are like, I find it very fascinating in our business because you have two kind of mentalities. You've got the mentality that is, you're supposed to bend over backwards and answer the phone 24 hours a day. And, you're supposed to work with them, especially if you're in the luxury market. And I go, that sounds like you're teaching people how to treat you, and you're okay with them treating you like the help.
Agreed.
And there's a time and place for that. Like, I worked in fine dining. Like, I hate when people like squat down at my table, right? When your server's like, how are you today? Like, stand up, please. Or when someone sits in my booth, don't sit in my booth, right? When I was working in fine dining, I knew that I was the help. But from a real estate perspective, you hired me, right? Like, you called me. I have to think of my mindset the same way that I would if I was a doctor or an attorney. And I don't think that everyone does that in this industry. So I'm curious, Eve, would you say that where would you say that you fall in that kind of line in the sand of, how much is it that is, I'm a business person and this is the structure that there is. I'm going to be amenable, but I'm not going to change who I am, versus I'm going to be a chameleon and change my priorities every single client, every single time.
It's a good question. I like to think that I'm in that perfect spot in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm sure if you talk to all my clients, you would get varying reviews. But one of my strong characteristics, I've been told, is I'm very nurturing. And this shows up with my clients because I really have a personal stake in my clients feeling that they are comfortable with their decisions, they're comfortable with the way we're processing their requirements, and when we do find a house and they do close on it, that they feel that they have won. They feel that, they were heard, we found the right place, it all went as smoothly as possible, and that, as a team, Team Sawicki and Seller have won. So I would say if I fell on one side of the line or the other, I'm probably a little bit more of a chameleon than I am, a straight back, not changing anything kind of agent.
Yeah, and I want to be clear if I misspoke. It's not, it's not like my way or the highway. It's that they don't do this every day. I do this every day. And you hired me to help navigate you through a difficult transaction, right? And so I also think of it as like a boat captain, right? Like, the boat captain is not going to go, all right, there's 300 people here. I'd like to hear all of your opinions.
Yeah.
The captain is, we're in a situation and I'm going to fall back on what I know because I've done this over and over and over again. That's why you hired me. That's part of my value here. And so again, it goes back to I appreciate your opinion. I absolutely want to take those things into consideration. And I do want to remind you that part of the reason why you hired me is because you wanted someone to handle this that had the experience and the knowledge and the know-how. That's why you chose not to become a for sale by owner. So where during this path did that change?
Yes. And Bo said something a little bit ago about setting expectations. And I can't emphasize that enough. And that needs to start from the very first phone call. You set an expectation in that very first phone call that you are going to arrive knowledgeable, armed with the information that the seller wants, to move forward at selling their house. And then when you actually do the appointment, you're setting expectations about price and how marketing is going to be handled. So it's the same thing here, that you want to set expectations about how your seller will see you as a professional, see you as the person who is going to give them the guidance and the recommendations that they need to make their decision, because in the end, it's the seller's call. But you're absolutely right, Michael. It's important to, to have that image of professionalism and value that the seller respects and understands, as you're moving through the partnership.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that, we've spent some time this last week and this week kind of talking about your value proposition, your unique value proposition. And I think one of the interesting things is that, Eve, you said that one of the things that you would like to be perceived, right, your brand to be perceived, is that level of nurturing. And so
Yes.
What I would love is for the people who are here in the chat box, I want you to use what 3 words, right? We'll just use 3 because it'll make it simple. What 3 words would you like for your clients to describe who you are as a business? And so, Eve, you said nurture was one of yours. What would be your other 2?
My other 2 would be knowledgeable.
Okay.
And let me think for a moment. Probably professional.
Okay. So knowledgeable, professional, and nurturing. Awesome.
Right.
For everyone else, please put it in the chat box so that we can see what your 3 words are. And so the point of that is that now if I was to go back to you, Eve, and I said, if I was to look at your marketing material, does your marketing material have the language that says knowledgeable, professional, and nurturing?
And I would say, yes, it does.
Good. And that's this is not to pin Eve in a corner. This is, if that is the way that you would want your brand to be described, are you using those words to paint the narrative of yourself? And I think that, if I saw a postcard that said Eve Sawicki, knowledgeable, professional, nurturing, I would think, wow, that's a really different word. I probably would have never thought that a real estate professional would have used nurturing on the process, but I might like that someone is going to take the time to be nurturing. And so, I think that that's a great word, and that's why I was asking more than anything. Let's see some of the answers. Go ahead.
I was going to say, how about you, Michael? What 3 words would you use to describe yourself?
I would say that it's knowledgeable, stability, and marketing expert. Right. And I would say that that's what I try to be as a coach. That's what I try to be as a leader in the Market Center. I think that, my job, the more knowledge that I know, the more confident I am. The more knowledge that I know, the more that I can share with you to make an informed decision. Stability is very important for me because as an agent, I think that you are used to stabilize the situation. I think that you have to be, the cool cucumber. Your emotions can't get involved in the situation. As a leader and a coach during COVID, I remember when Micheal, my coach, was asking, what do you want to be remembered for during this time? And what 3 words would it be? It was stable, confident, consistent, and knowledgeable. And so I think that you find that these are kind of your underlining principles or values as a business owner or in alignment with your work ethic. And so do you embody that? And if you do embody that, is that a part of your marketing material? Are you telling your brand story? I think is really, really important.
Agreed.
Let's see. So Leslie said honesty, integrity, and fairness. Okay. Bo said professional, trustworthy, knowledgeable, or expert. He just can't stay in the line and just pick 3. That's fine, Bo. Appreciate it. Kelly said honest, knowledgeable, punctual. Okay. Tamisha said knowledgeable, professional, and honest. Genoa said genuine, knowledgeable, determined. Linda said dependable, trustworthy, and knowledgeable. Man, knowledgeable, knowledgeable, knowledgeable. So if knowledgeable is a part of your brand, how, A, do you know that you're knowledgeable? And B, how do your clients know that you're knowledgeable?
Good question.
Right? It's the same thing of saying, like, you know, I want to be trustworthy was a word that Linda used. So how am I letting them know that I'm a trustworthy person? Well, maybe you have, you know, the KWY 4C 2Ts, the belief system there. You have your testimonials of people who are talking about what it was like to work with you. So with some of the words that you're using, it's now how do we translate that knowledge to them? For me, showing someone that you're knowledgeable is putting out content. Again, this goes back to our conversation yesterday from a marketing perspective. That is, are you giving your people a weekly update? Are you able to speak competently on how we do a comparative market analysis? Can you speak competently on what forbearance is and what that means for people's business? Can you speak competently on refinancing, on listing the home, on staging the home? And then are you putting that information out into the universe so that people can see it? You know, I find that more often than not, people don't know you're a genius until they sit next to you at like a cocktail party. Because we never give someone an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with us or to hear our thoughts, to pontificate on something longer than just a minute or two, unless, you know, you have like my job where that's basically what I get paid to do. So that's where I find that putting out that content, doing the videos, teaching the seminars, putting, whether it's a blog, vlog, whatever you want to do, that's going to show people how knowledgeable you are and can be really helpful and really powerful in your business.
I think it's important, though, Michael, that we have to remember that to appear knowledgeable is often dependent on the perception of the person who is receiving the information. And yes, what I mean by this is lots and lots of content or lots and lots of information is not necessarily the way to go about appearing knowledgeable. You have to really evaluate who you're dealing with. If you have a type A personality, for example, who just says, cut to the chase, tell me what I need to do, let's get this done. Giving them reams of data about statistics and that sort of thing is not going to make you appear knowledgeable. It's going to make you appear stupid because you didn't listen to or match, you know, what the person was looking for. So that's the only point that I would bring up about appearing knowledgeable.
Right, and that's from the have you ever been, you know, I don't know about you, have you ever been in a sales situation where someone did the close and then they filled the space by keep talking? Yes. And the more that they talked, you're like, they're inexperienced.
Yep.
Yeah. So to your point, knowledge does not equal word count.
I like that. You're right.
Yeah. Knowledge does not equal word count. Knowledge is, can I effectively communicate the message that I'm trying to get across? And the other part of this is that you don't need to have a doctorate in economics. You don't need to have a mortgage license in order to talk about refinancing. Again, I want to encourage you all to go back to the video that I posted yesterday, because yes, it's 9 minutes to Eve's point, I'm rambling. And yet there are probably 4 or 5 different topics that I'm covering during that video. And the point here is, I just listened to another interview, took bits and pieces that I thought would be of value to my people, and then I went online to share it with my people. I didn't have to, you know, footnote, source anything. I didn't have to do any of that, and spoke vague enough that is, if you have any questions at all about what I talked about, or specifically on refinancing, you want me to put you in contact with a lender, let me know, right? That's the steps to do. And it's the same thing that we talk about of being the source of the source, as opposed to being the source of all of the information. It's very good. Okay, we've gone a little bit over. Eve, I've enjoyed our banter this morning. I hope that it's helpful to get two different perspectives. Absolutely, in a normal situation, Eve would be teaching one of these classes for a couple hours, but I am very appreciative of you being on here every morning and just pouring in, both as an attendee and as a faculty member. So thank you, Eve. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, so again, I want to make sure that we're good with time. Your needs. So what is this essential page? This is kind of walking you through the home seller's guide, those things that are there. We're not going to do the presentation of the listing presentation today. That might be something that we focus on tomorrow, and we'll find maybe a special treat for tomorrow for that. Same thing with the handling of the pricing objections. We'll kind of spend tomorrow as kind of a mock day, if we will. A home walkthrough, right? So this is an opportunity when you first go into the property to be able to see what it is that's actually there. And you've got two options. Option one is you allow the seller to take you through the home of where they tell you that this is a kitchen, because you'd have no idea if they weren't there with you. This is the bathroom, because you'd have no idea what a bathroom looks like. I was confused. The commode I thought was always in the bedroom. And so you can usually do a walkthrough with a seller that's also going to show you all of the good things about the house. What I like to do is I like to walk into the listing appointment, say, thank you so much for having me. Do you mind if I put my stuff down at the dining room table, or is there another area that you would feel more comfortable sitting at to discuss? Great. If you don't mind, I would love it if I could get a glass of water. And during that time, what I'd actually like to do is I'd like to look through the house from the eyes of a buyer, as if I was coming to the house for the very first time, without you, without your narrative, without me or my narrative, just what the buyer is going to see unguided. And the reason why I do that is A, yes, just first impressions. How did the home show first impression? And B, because I can walk through a house in less than 5 minutes by myself. That would have been 20 minutes if the seller was taking me through the house. So the home walkthrough is an opportunity for you to take some notes down, to remember some kind of generalities, to make some suggestions about staging or ways that we can declutter some areas, just so that you have some talking points when you sit down with them and walk them through it. Closing the deal, again, we're going to spend tomorrow's focus will be actually the role modeling through pricing objections, closing the deal, and the actual listing presentation. So we're going to do that. Let's talk about ahas, because I do want to be mindful of our time. What are some ahas from today? How has your thinking changed? What ideas or mindsets were new for you today? And what was meaningful to you today from our conversation? So Kelly said, don't give too much away in the pre-listing. Absolutely. Thank you, Eve, for that part. What else? What else did you gain from today? Kelly said, I liked hearing seasoned agents discuss what business is like in real life today. Thought it was very educational. Absolutely. Absolutely, because that's a word. I don't know. My brain's just not shooting out today. Let's see. Kelly said also to find out and know who the Chadwick group is. Linda said, like how you said you would like to walk through the home by yourself to get the buyer's perspective. It's a great way to put it. Absolutely. It's a script, right? Remember, scripts are nothing more than a series of questions to get you the outcome that you wanted. So I asked a question. I actually asked two questions. If you don't mind, could you please get me a glass of water? And while you're doing that, I would love the opportunity to be able to walk through the home from the eyes of the buyer. So I am getting them to start to do what I asked them to do. So by asking them to get me a drink of water, I'm starting to program them to do what I ask of them. And then two, I'm asking if I can look through the home from the eyes of a buyer so that I can speed the process up. Let's see, Bo said expectations and guiding the convo using your materials. Absolutely. Great job. What are some action steps that you intend to take this next week with the information that you heard today from Eve as well as from myself? So Eve wants to craft a pre-listing packet where she can at least choose whether or not she wants to do it, but at least it's crafted. Genoa said doing a mock listing presentation once a week. Absolutely. Bo, he needs to get a packet together. Kelly, finding all packets, checklists, etc., and printing. Sorry, Kelly, you had asked some questions up there. In addition to, Kelly was asking where to find the information. There's a lot of stuff on kwconnect.com. You could pretty much type in listing presentation and there will be documents, sample templates, videos, a whole bunch of stuff. That's kwconnect.com. It's kind of like the Keller Williams version of YouTube, a mixture between like YouTube and whatever Google tried to do that nobody actually uses, Google Plus or whatever. In addition to that, let me go back up and make sure that I have your questions, Kelly. She asked, if a home comes off the market and someone relists with another realtor, can you use the previous pictures from the first listing? Generally speaking, no. The agent before is the one who owns the pictures. The agent is the one who pays for the pictures. It's a part of your marketing package. It's part of the way that you earn your commission. So you're paying for it. And so now sometimes you can call the agent before and say, hey, listen, you know, I have this listing. I see that you listed it before. You've got some great pictures. I'll pay you for the pictures, right? So if new pictures cost you $200 and the pictures, if you use them from him or her that's no longer going to use them, they'll give it to you for $100. Great. If they're good pictures. If they're not good pictures, then obviously don't pay for them. Let's see. Great. Leslie said, modify her packets. Kelly said, look over the pre-listing agreement. Okay. Yeah. So the pre-listing packet, there is no pre-listing agreement minus just the listing agreement. So you absolutely do want to get pretty comfortable with the actual listing agreement, buyer brokerage agreement. Absolutely. Lena said, get some testimonials from people for characters. Absolutely. And so, yes, to Eve's point, actually, most pictures are copyrighted, so the photographer owns the pictures. It depends on what your relationship looks like with the photographer. So in my instance, if I'm paying for the pictures, then I own the pictures. And so that again is for you to have a conversation with your photographer. Does the photographer own the pictures or do you own the pictures? It depends on your agreement with your photographer for sure. Kelly said, where is the pre-listing packet? So there's some information on the pre-listing packet in the Elementals toolkit. So I'm actually going to go ahead in here and see if I can't send you the link that's going to have all the stuff that you need, including the Elementals toolkit. So this is all of the participant packets. This is the toolkits. This is everything that you need is in this one. So I'm going to send that to you now in the link. That way you can go through and find it. In addition to being there, you will also find it in KW Connect. You can find the pre-listing packet in the Ignite toolkit, the Ignite training material. So you either have it in the toolkit in the Google Drive that I just sent you, or you can find it on KW Connect. Okay, folks, so we're going to do something a little different today. We're not going to take the 10 to 10:30 hour to do script practice because I've steamrolled through it. And I also promised Kelly that I would show you how to find numbers in IMAP. So if you're running out of people to call, I'm going to show you how to do this. What we are going to do is we're going to do our lead generation from 10:30 until 11:30, or until about 11:35 or so, because you know me, I'm a little talker, and then we'll take the last bit to focus on adding people to our database until noon. So what that means is that you're going to have to coordinate with your script partner for some time this afternoon to go ahead and practice your scripts. In the interim, like I said, I'm going to spend the next few minutes to show you how to find numbers using IMAP in your MLS. So you're going to need to first make sure that you have access to the MLS. That's going to be very helpful for you. And so you're going to log in to mfr.mlsmatrix.com, especially if you don't know how to do this outside of the MLS. This is just, if I'm already in the MLS often, then I'm going to go ahead and look at the opportunities. So I'm going to go to the tax tab. And now for anybody that's like, oh my goodness, Michael, you're going to move too quickly, there's a standard operating procedure document that I have on how to find numbers in IMAP. I'm going to put that in the Google Drive link that I just sent to all of you, so you'll have access to that too, that you can go back and do. So in the tax tab, I'm going to click on the IMAP button. That's going to give me a new link, or a new tab rather. You want to make sure that it's set to the search area that is Pinellas County. Sometimes mine defaults to Orange County, so just go back and make sure. There are 3 tabs. So there's tax search, MLS search, and foreclosure search. We just want to do general tax search right now because we're looking for people in a particular area. You have 2 options. Actually, you have a couple options. So if you're looking for just one person, you could put the one person's name, last name first, comma, first name last. If you're looking for another person, you don't know their name, but you know their street address, you can put in just the street address and find that particular property. And yet for the purpose of phone numbers, generally speaking, people are looking for a large batch that you can do. And so you can do this in one of 2 ways. You can either do this based on subdivision. If there is a legal subdivision name, say something like Allendale Terrace, where we know that there are 388 homes, or like Bahia Shores, that's going to have about 268 homes, whatever it might be. The problem in St. Pete is that we don't really have large master plan communities. Or if we do, then there was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, whatever it might look like. So you either can do it based on subdivision, or you can do it based on the map. So you can actually click on the map, it's going to pull up the map view, and you can use the polygon tool to just draw the area that you're looking for. So let's say that you're looking for from 9th Street to 16th Street, from 38th Avenue to 54th Avenue. That would be the Allendale Terrace and Euclid Heights area. Then you would just use the polygon and kind of draw the huge rectangle around it, right? And so Linda's going to find this helpful because Linda lives in Allendale Terrace. So I'm actually just going to do it for the simplicity of it by using a legal subdivision name. So first you need to know the legal subdivision name. And so you can do that by looking up a particular street address, finding their legal subdivision, and then coming into here and putting it in. So let's say that you already know your subdivision name. So like Allendale Terrace. I'm going to go ahead and click that in. Again, make sure that I'm Pinellas County, that I'm the tax search, because if I did this for Orange County, I'm going to get 0 results. So just making sure it's Pinellas County, Allendale Terrace, and then I'm going to click Start Search. And so that's going to give me all of the results here in Allendale Terrace. I don't know why IMAP is being so slow. It might be because I have 50 million tabs open, which gives me anxiety. So I'm sure it's doing it for you. So you can see that it's thinking, and we can see that the results are 388 homes. So this is now every home, right? They're only showing 25 for this page. That's why there's multiple pages. Of course, you can extend it however many you want. And how many people on the page that you want, right? Whatever it looks like. So here's your results. As you can see over here on the right-hand side, you can download these results. You can go ahead and create mailing labels for these individuals. You can refine the search or save this search. You can print this page. So I'm actually going to download the results because I want the phone numbers. So you'll see that there's a couple different ways that I can download the results. I can either do the full tax record. I can do based on owner address, owner name and address, or phone, and I want the phone number. So it's going to give me all the details anyway, but it's also going to include their phone number. So what I'm going to do is, instead of a CSV, which I can't read, a computer can, yet I can read an Excel file, I'm going to go ahead and select the file format that I want is an Excel file format. And so now I'm going to download the results. And instantly, I'm going to have all 388 addresses. I'm going to have who the owners are. I'm going to have whether or not the mailing address is different from the physical address. And then I'm going to see that about a third or so of the homes are going to have a phone number. Now, with that being said, even though about a third of them have a phone number, you'll find that probably a third of the phone numbers actually work. There's going to be a lot of disconnected, there's going to be a lot of old phones, but guess what? This is free, and free is for me. So if you're looking, you will never run out of numbers, ever. You just find a new neighborhood, you download the results, you call the people. And once you connect with someone, or you know that it's a good number, you go ahead and you add them into your database, and then you're good to go. So what's going to happen is I'm going to need to stop share for a moment so that I can download the Excel file, so that you can see what that looks like. So it's going to open up here in a moment. Again, my computer is like, you are working me too much. Okay, so now you can see this is what just popped up from Excel. So you can now see who are all of the people who live in the area, right? Who's owner 1, who's owner 2. You can see what their house number. So currently it's sorted by the house number, right? Where they live, what it looks like. We're able to see this is the house number, and then you can see the phone numbers, right? So out of 388, there's probably, 60 phone numbers here, and I'd say probably about 20 of them are going to work. But now I have 20 new people to call that I can make a connection with, and I can have a conversation with them about their home, or maybe in the area that I'm looking to do. Again, I do have a standard operating procedure for this that I'm going to put into the Google Drive for you. If you have any questions about it, that'll definitely answer some of it for you. But I hope that that's helpful, that you'll be able to go through and find phone numbers. This is a really great tool to use. Let's say that you take a new listing in a place like Allendale. You can call those numbers and let them know that you have a new listing. If you go under contract, you can call all those numbers and let them know that you've gone under contract. If you're going to be doing an open house this weekend, you can call all of the numbers for the neighborhood that the house is in and let them know that you're doing an open house and you'd love for them to stop by and say hello. And if they, if they know anybody, then they can do that too. So I've used this for a while. It's definitely helped to beef up my database a bit. You will have to strum through it. If you're getting frustrated that you're calling and you're getting disconnected numbers or wrong numbers, either A, get over it, or B, you're going to have to shell out some money for a company like RedX or Vulcan 7 or Cole Realty Resource. You're going to have to use one of these tools that's going to be able to help you find numbers. They pay, and so that you get to do that. What do you say if people are mad and want to know how you got their number? It's public record. So their number actually has been public record. You can let them know that you use a third-party source, which is IMAP, that pulls their number from public records and things that are there. However, you didn't mean any disrespect or anything that's there. And so if they have a problem, you respectfully say, I completely understand. I'll make a record here that I will remove you from my list and I won't give you a call anymore. Thanks, have a great day. I mean, that's pretty much it. But don't necessarily worry about it until it gets to that point. Because again, it's public record. Okay, so we're gonna take the next hour to focus on your lead generation. I actually have a predetermined appointment that was scheduled that I didn't have any plans, because remember, doctors don't just run for you. So I have to go run to a doctor real quick. It shouldn't take me long. My intention is to be back by 11:30. If by chance I'm not back by 11:30, then please use the 11:30 to 12 o'clock hour to be focused on your database, inputting things into command, and then I will be right back here, definitely by noon, to ensure that we get to use the campaigns in command and how to get those low-cost leads. So my plan is also to take my iPad. I'll be able to come into the Zoom room and see anything in the chat box if you have any questions. But we're taking the next hour for lead gen, and then that will be followed by our time in command. And I will come back on camera as soon as I'm here. All right, thank you all very much.